everyone, and welcome to episode number 10 of our other security podcast, Really Bad Security. With me, I've got two of my partners in crime, Anthony and Aaron. And today we are going to be talking to White Knight Labs co-founders, Greg Hatcher and John Stigerwalt. And we're going to be talking about AWS and some misconfigurations. Again, the premise of Really Bad Security is to take a look at areas where maybe we're not paying enough attention to the security that's out there. Maybe we're doing something well, but we're really not doing something well. We just think we are, and areas that we know that we can do better. So we're going to talk. We're going to demo. We're going to look at some settings. And so with that, Greg, I'm going to pass it over to you. Let you guys introduce yourself, and then we'll get into it.
Thanks, Matt. Hey, everybody. My name is Greg Hatcher. I own part of White Knight Labs with my business partner, John Stigerwalt. My background is in Army Special Forces. I was a Green Beret for a bit, and then I was a stay-at-home dad, and then I was a cybersecurity engineer. A very normal lineage into getting into this career field. So, John, want to do your intro, and then I'll get right into it?
Yeah, sure, guys. Hey, John Stigerwalt here, one of the founders of WKL here. Interesting background, started from IT help desk, worked with the rank security lead, played CISO for a while, and then moved into pen testing, and then jumped right into red teaming. So, long story short, that's where I'm at today, and that's why we run the business. So nice to meet you all.
So is it John's the nice one, and Greg, you choke the bad guys out?
I do.
It's funny. It might be opposite sometimes.
we do play good cop, bad cop sometimes with vendors. Yeah,
but we did the same, no vendors actually are harmed in the making of this particular episode.
Can't say that.
Anthony is actually our bad cop.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So there is one slide, host disabled participant screen sharing. Can we get that enabled?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Let me.
Awesome.
We practice what we preach with security controls.
I didn't know that was possible. That is definitely a least privilege model in Zoom.
All right. Hold on. Let's see.
Oh, you did. It's good.
Can share. Good. All right. Cool.
Yep. Okay. So you guys get one slide. This is it. So this is our victim. He's very sad down here. So we're going to be focusing on the C2 server and the redirector today. So whenever you're setting up red team infrastructure, you have a server. And if you're not doing it correctly, you're just going to have the C2 server out there in the wild, like whenever open to the world on 80 and 443, and maybe to port 22 if you want to get really crazy, so they can access it via the command line. This I call the redirector the brains of the operation. So when we're running a red team engagement, we're going to have a redirector in front of our team server, and only traffic that is that we want to hit our team server is going to be filtered through the redirector to the C2 server. So that's going to be the second half of this. So John is going to go over like using proxy pass and certain rules to shape our traffic. Only certain things can get to the C2 server.
So why is it Harry Potter's castle?
Is that Harry Potter's castle? That's just from Google. So yeah. I wanted to have like a secure castle with a moat around.
No, moat. Yeah, I picked up what you're putting down.
Okay. Yeah.
So
And,
I was going to say, just to expand on that real quick, guys. So C2 command and control. We're a Global Strike shop. 100% support Global Strike. It's what we use today. We've tried the C2s out, but we're a CS shop for today. The reason you would put a redirector in front of your C2 server or Global Strike server is to add protection and anomaly it. So you want to be protected. You don't want the internet to see a Global Strike server, because as we all know, you've probably seen LinkedIn posts and various other things happening where blue teamers, we're not going to call out certain teams who like to burn another Global Strike or red team infrastructure, but they'll go out there and hunt for Global Strikes on the public internet. And a lot of those are like ransomware groups or attackers who don't know what they're doing, right? So when they actually find a real pen test team who has permission to test, it's not good, right? So we want, our goal here is to kind of add some clarity, maybe some help, some other red teams to really locking down your infrastructure, because at the end of the day, it is really important. And the reason is why is sometimes AWS or like Netscape or various things, if you've ever been in a circumstance we have, is where we've gotten caught on an engagement because a client reported us and they weren't really sure it was us. Because, red team is tactical emulation, right? So we're really simulating a real live attack here. So they actually do report us. And AWS shut us down. We had an account burned, a full account burned. It was the farthest we've ever seen it taken. Microsoft was involved, and we were labeled as an ATP. So it was very serious stuff. So we take our red teams very seriously. Even when we do pen testing or Global Strike, everything's protected. So that can't happen again, right? And then we do notify and we have permission to test, but we still treat it like a real live attacker, and we protect infrastructure. So what we're demoing today for you guys is we're going to show you a C2 server 3-4 years ago where no one really protected it, no one cared, and today we're going to show you the real gold standard of like how to really protect your stuff and really take it to the next level for a red team, and that's what we strive to do.
Quick question on this then. Are you going to focus on, AWS in-house controls or both, right? Or like AWS WAF, Web Application Firewall, security groups, because obviously I am knee deep in some of this stuff right now.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very boring. We're going to go into AWS Cloud Console and show you what whitelisting via IP address, using VPCs, so that the C server can only be accessed over private VPC from the redirector. So speaking of that, let's get right into it. I will stop sharing that, and I will start sharing my other screen. Okay, can everybody see AWS?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, cool. So let's start with the smart redirector. So security. This is what things are supposed to look like. So this is the redirector. So this is the thing that gets beat on in a real live red team engagement. So like your proof point, your virus total, this is what they're going to be hitting. So it's open to the world on 80 and 443 because it kind of has to be. So when you're doing a client engagement, I would like to be able to filter out traffic to just that client. But what if they're VPNing in from their house, or they're just not even on a VPN, they're still accessing it, and they click that fish from their Outlook inbox, and they're on a different IP than we have in Proxy Pass or our filtration mechanism. So then we just lost that traffic that could have been a beacon. So we had that open to the world. So this is really interesting. So this 1 through 65, 534, this is actually a VPC. So this filters traffic back to our team server, and our team server is only accessible via the 10.10.0024. So as you can see here, John's got inbound subnet access for 10.10.00. And the 22 is open to the world, but we have that behind key authentication. Any questions on that?
Yep. Anybody watching this, I will say there's always room for improvement here. That obviously any critics out there, port range 1 to 65,534, it could be done better. In this case, we're a little bit lazy and saying, subnet access. No, if you're that far inside infrastructure breaching us, have at it, man.
Well, because there's bigger concerns if they're that far in, right?
That far in, or even
so this is good. Do you want to just at a high level, right? Because we're going to have different, levels of, listeners and viewers watching this. Can you want to just do a high level overview of security groups and how they kind of relate to access control layers, right? So if you're in, you're in the Windows world, you used to access control layers, and how close or how similar, I should say similar. So an engineer like Anthony does not yell at me and correct me, how similar they are.
Yeah, sure. So I think AWS has done a really good job at simplifying security groups. So right here, we have our security group rule ID. And when you're making your actual box, say if you're making like an Ubuntu box or Windows box, you can apply a security group rule ID to that machine. And this is it's like in a template. And then you can just apply that template to that machine. So all this manual work is only done once. So reading this one from left to right, so it belongs to this security group ending in 36. It's SSH traffic over 22. Source is custom. And then 0000 is basically the entire world. It's like all IP ranges. And this is the description optional CS redirect SSH access. So that stands for Cobalt Strike Redirector SSH access.
And I will say the security group IDs, all this is automated with Terraform. Now, if you don't know what Terraform is, it's just an automated way to build AWS infrastructure. We found it saves hours and days of time if we can automatically stand this up very fast. That's a really advanced topic right now, but we stand this up with Terraform. So when you see random IDs, or like, for example, the CS Reader J562 at the top up there, that's all customized random IDs that we assign and we tear down. It means nothing to us, right? It's just Terraform basics. So
Which we could do a whole episode on.
We could do
Terraform
multiple
security.
episodes
Yeah, we
on
could.
Terraform.
Well, I
Terraform
was
is
going
a
to ask,
beast.
is a lot of this like default settings that we're finding are the areas where you're going to be going after? I mean, how much of this stuff just happens out of the box where the vulnerabilities or areas for attack are?
So I will say this though, AWS is really wised up. When you build an EC2 instance, let's just say you build a standard Ubuntu 20.04, for example, or 22.04, whatever it is now. The only thing they enable is they enable inbound access. So what we're looking at right now is edit inbound rules. That's inbound. So if you pull up Nmap right now and you scan this IP address, you're going to see 22.80.443. You won't see the internal subnet because that's locked down. You can see we're filtering only to the 10.10, which is a private subnet for our VPC only. Great. So if you use the default VPC, which everybody would at some time, just new beginner starting out, you're going to only have SSH access to your boxes. You'll be either prompted to set up a new SSH key, import your own SSH private key, or etc. Right? So in a default instance, it is secure for boxes because it only allows 22. It does not open any other ports by default. Now let's jump over to the outbound rules. When we talk about outbound, it allows everything out, meaning that all your ports can reach out by default. So you actually can restrict that. For example, say your web server is only going to communicate outbound over port 49,000 to 50,000. You can limit that. You can restrict that, for example. And those are just ports that would set up established connections, right? Because obviously the server has to be able to reach out, establish connections with other clients or people. So we don't really lock that down to the outbound ports. When we refer to a firewall, that makes more sense locking those down, right? But for AWS, locking the inbound is the most important concept. Does that make sense?
Which is huge, right? Because
correct.
When you're treating web application firewall, to your point, you have to treat it, learning the hard way, you have to treat it a little bit more differently than a traditional network firewall.
Yep. And what you guys see here is this is just the redirector. We actually locked down the Cobalt Strike server. So Greg, jump over there. Let's show them what that looks like real quick to the Cobalt Strike server. This is just a redirector. Remember, this is to simulate a real web server. So we're just simulating what a real website would look like here, even though it's a redirector, right? So let's jump over to the Cobalt Strike server. Then we'll go to security here. And this is the interesting part right here. So you can see the only public access we have here is that 22, right? See, it's white, it's open to the public. The rest are just custom IP addresses that we have set up for the console. So if you don't know what Cobalt Strike does,
so for go ahead, anyways, for reference, so these are your operators are going to be accessing the team server via whitelist IP address. So these are public static IP addresses for me and John. Go ahead and take notes if you want our public IP address. We don't really care.
good luck.
And like John was talking about on the redirector before, this 10.10.0024, this is the only inbound access on a private VPC. So the redirector can access this on that VPC, and that's it.
So what we're doing here, guys, is we're actually security is really key here for red teams, especially for client data. So what we've done, instead of just passing data externally from the redirector to the Cobalt Strike server, we could do what's called a proxy pass, and we can pass data internally through the subnets, so it never touches the internet. There's no possibility for man-mail traffic. It's really good stuff. So it's kind of like I would say it's similar to a VPN, if you know what that is. And then just imagine there's really no additional layer 2 traffic on top there. We're just encrypting traffic back and forth between the boxes. So
you bring up a good point, because if you do this correctly, and the stuff that I think Greg's going to even show is you can create a hybrid environment in the cloud.
Yep, correct. And we're showing like red team infrastructure, really cool advanced techniques, but this concept can be applied to anything.
Yep. So now let's show them the terrible team server that I just spun up like literally 5 minutes ago. Okay. Yeah, Johnny doesn't have access to this. So this is an example of how everything can go wrong. So this is our team server. It is not behind a redirector. It is readable on 80.443 and 22 to the entire world. I did have to I whitelisted my IP for admin access via the Cobalt Strike agent. I'm not willing to do that world readable. Like even
Help systems will like crack down on us right now. They're like, hey, we saw your podcast. Like, this is crap. You're done.
Yeah, it's trash. Okay. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. So
real quick, going back. Oh, just talking to that. Do you want to, for those listeners that we have that are not familiar with that, why why would you not want why would you have 80 open like that? And why isn't an issue? Why isn't an issue?
Yeah. So to recap, the reader, like doing it correctly, this would be behind a redirector. Not having a redirect in front of this means 80 and 443 are wide open. And so all those scanners, all those bots on the internet, like Virus Total, Proofpoint, anything that's going to be reaching out, actively looking for Cobalt Strike servers, and we have a listener running on the team server, the insecure team server, it's going to flag that traffic immediately, especially if you're using some kind of like already signatured malleable C2 profile. Like Joe Vest has a GitHub. He has a bunch of examples for malleable C2 profiles that are like very heavily signatured, because people go to GitHub and they're just like, oh, I need a profile for my malleable C2. So they'll grab that one, start a listener. As soon as Virus Total hits that, your traffic is flagged. Your domain, you're basically burned. Yep. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second here.
Which, while you're pulling it up, is one of the reasons why when we partner with vendors, we pretty are hardcore about registering domains in-house, right? Because to your point, one of the worst things that could happen is you get a marketing company you're working with and they purchase the domain name, they control it. They don't warm up the IP. They do, they do other things that quickly get them on a spam list, or your point about do not allow list. And your company has zero means to help, right? You're totally relying on that marketing team, their IT team, to do the necessary things to get it off that blacklist.
There's a lot. That's another whole topic there. We can go on for a whole hour on that one. Getting companies off spam lists, do not block list, spam house, all that stuff. It's
importance
possible,
of warming up your IP.
Categorization. There's a whole way you can go. And what's really funny today, tie on that a little bit, is marketing is really funny today because, I get a mass amount of emails. I imagine everybody else does, especially business to business. So if you're using your domain name to send out marketing, like cold call emails, mass send, you're blacklisted. You're done. Everybody's buying crap domains and doing it that way. So, number one way to fail.
And that's why we're doing really bad security today.
Yeah.
That could tie into really bad marketing, like a sister thing.
I have
we
to
all
say,
have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, I have to say, I love the premise of really bad security, because like you don't get to demo the terrible things very often. Usually just start at the end. So, okay, this is my insecure C2 Cobalt Strike team server. We started a listener. This is our IP address, 18.220.42.74. We've got it listening on 443. So I'm going to stop sharing. We're going to go over to Nmap, and we are going to Nmap the team server.
Which,
could you guys see?
Casual listeners, Nmap, what's kind of the purpose of Nmap? How hard is it to do an Nmap scan?
Can you see my iTerm?
Yep.
Okay, this is how hard it is to do in Nmap. So basically, we just did for the TAC P443 means we're focusing Nmap on just port 443, and this is the public IP address of the team server. And as you can see here, because I started that HTTPS listener on 443, the state is going to be open. So,
yep. Hold on. I do want to say, though, we don't condone port scanning anybody publicly without permission. Just so you know, there's a really strong gray area there. So do not port scan unless you have permission.
Yep.
Best advice.
Did you just do a disclaimer, John? I'm proud of you, man. What do you care about those?
No, I think Matt got me worried there. He's like,
well, since has your name attached to it, is probably a good thing, right? Like, the things that we were showing you in this episode are for informational purposes only.
Right.
And it sounds like the audience may not be super mature, or maybe it's the
it's going to be a variety.
A variety, right? So play with that map. Scan yourself. Just don't scan anybody else. Intensive, right? So.
Yes.
Okay. So our weblogs, if you ever see anything like this basically means that your team server is world readable and people are scanning you. So as you can see here, by the way, the weblog functionality within Cobalt Strike, just basically what is hitting your listener. And this is what's hitting your listener. We have a get request to TAC happy, another request to happy. John definitely just did that live. He just did a GET request.
You should loud.
You should see this.
Not the like, little misspelling,
right?
Yeah. So you should be seeing this. Yeah. But anyways, so if you ever do this after like various tool catches on, your weblog is just like, it's just going to fill up and be gross. So we'll try one of those lists like the Sophos
show them
list.
the user agent here. See the user agent. You can see it's curl. Highlight it, Greg, for him if you could.
Yep. So curl. So he's basically just doing a curl against this public IP address.
That's right.
Now, in this day and age with cloud logging solutions, right? And you have, even if you're using free ones or a lower level license, maybe explain like an unintended consequence of something like this with your log file filling up quickly. So Greg, what would be a downside of that?
Well, after it fills up, you can't get any more. So that would be a horrible downside. Yeah.
That would be really bad security.
I love it. Okay. I think that's good for Cobalt Strike. What I'm going to do is I did filter this by IP address. So I'm going to hop.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Greg freeze.
did we lose him?
He probably stopped sharing at the same time he was talking, and it's like, boom.
Yeah, the computer didn't know what to do. I was like, he was on a roll. Do you want to switch over for a second?
Oh,
no,
here he is.
He's back. Okay.
He's froze, buddy.
He's back.
Oh, I froze.
Yeah, you froze.
Oh yeah, because I got off the VPN, or I turned my VPN on. Sorry about that, guys.
Oh, good. We riffed during it. We're good.
Okay. I'm actually going to take my team server down real quick, and it is. Bring it back up. Make sure my VPN's good. And it is. So this should not. Let me share my screen. This is like a lot of jujitsu with the screen sharing. Okay, so this should not work. So we got my alias, doesn't really matter. Host, that's the public IP address of the team server. Port 550, user, doesn't matter. And then I've got my super secret password, password 123. And then we connect. Now, this is not going to work because if you remember, the only layer of security I put on this insecure team server is that I whitelisted my IP address for the actual Cobalt Strike team server from the agent. So, and actually, it's not saying anything. It's not giving me a fail or a.
It's going to time out. It takes about 2-3 minutes for the timeout. So if you don't see something instantly, it's a timeout.
Yeah, let's not sit here and do nothing. We'll just go on to the next thing.
Yeah, or even so, I think as we're, going through this and you're showing some of this stuff, and certainly I know that you guys are doing the pen testing side of this, but are you also able to get in and help people if they say have some of these bad configurations as a company? Do you go in and help them with like reconfigurations, making their really bad security better security? Talk about White Knight Labs a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a cloud component of almost every single job that we do. So whether it be Azure, GCP, or AWS, I'm doing a massive AWS security review right now for a Fortune 500 company, and we'll get like a 10,000 foot view of their infrastructure. Usually we'll have to have some kind of like special, like if you're using Trend Micro cloud conformity. Can you guys see that? It finally timed out.
Nope, your screen's not sharing, buddy.
Okay. Anyways, it took like 3 minutes for Cobalt Strike to time out. It finally timed out. So, anyways, back to what I was saying. So, the cloud equivalent of like running a Nessus scan would be using something like Trend Micro Cloud Conformity. So you basically apply your conformity policy within the client's AWS tenant, and then you do your scanning, and it spits out a bunch of findings. There's like extreme, very high, medium, and low. And then what I like about conformity, we're not like pitching products, but just like it's a good one that we use. You can also use like free open source Prowler too, or Cloud Scout Suite from NCC Group. But you can filter out within conformity by like AWS Sys Benchmarks version 1.5, which came out in October of 2022. So hyper current standards within the Sys Benchmarks.
And they're CIS. That's CIS based, right?
Yep. Center for Internet Security. Yep. And that's
Very
basically
good.
what at One Night Labs we use the SIS benchmarks for that certain cloud platform. For instance, the SIS benchmarks for AWS would be different than the SIS benchmarks for GCP. They're customized for whatever CSP you're using. If that makes sense.
And I will say, guys, the tie onto that question as well with a different answer. I wouldn't say different answer is some of the things we show here. We teach training, right, on a lot of this different stuff. We teach the advanced stuff because I'll be honest with you, who wants to teach AWS rules all day long? It's pretty dreadful and it's pretty dull, right? But one of our things that we do shine on, though, is we have really good talent in-house, along with myself and Greg. So we help other pen test shops out who can't perform this type of things or lacking on certain skill sets. We'll give them Terraform scripts, show them how to build or even automate the entire process for them, and then teach those guys along the way. We do it all with buckets of hours. Everything's bucket hours based, and it's fair rate. And we have a lot of other shops who reach out to us for help.
Yeah, when we do that,
we love doing it.
Yeah, we do that outside of just cloud too. We also do R&D for other red teams that maybe don't have that development capability in house. So if they're like, okay, we're going against Sentinel-1 or Palo Alto Cortex, we want to be able to do this one thing. We can develop that software and deliver that to them with a bucket of hours.
Are you both seeing scenarios, right, with cloud to cloud stuff? One of the things that's been a challenge the last 6 months is where traditionally you've either had a web application that's done, like an API, just an API call, right? Sending pushing information. Now you're getting into these bigger solutions that have the API component, but you also have to have like login functionality, right? So a customer can either send you data via API, or you're having customer interactions where they need to come into your solution and, log in the traditional sense, or maybe even use a certificate. How are you seeing changes when it comes to that new hybrid model, right? Because you're going to protect your API a little bit differently than you're going to protect your traditional login. So are you seeing that more and more?
Jen, you want to take that?
Yeah, we are seeing that more. So interesting question. I guess I'll give you a pretty broad answer. Let's just say 5 years ago, it wasn't as secure as it is today. We see clients really, like, for example, we do a pen test or a web app, we're asking for a postman or a post file, right, of all the APIs. Most of them are pretty locked down. They have certain authentication, they have whitelisting, they have various things, and a lot of them are all cloud-based, right? We're seeing a lot of AWS integration, and actually Azure has taken a huge traction in the last 2 years as well, right? Now, when it comes to the login pages, we see them both pretty heavily protected. If we look at the trend of the previous OWASP top 10, like with SQL injection and authentication bypasses, we're not seeing those so often anymore. Not the ones I've tested in the last year, right? I think we popped one SQL RCE or SQL injection out of a total of 30 tests we did. So, which is good.
That's a good thing.
But OWASP is changing though, right? We're seeing a new standard come across for the 10 now. It changes every 2-3 years or whatever it's going to be. So, and I don't know if it's the best format to follow anymore. I think SAN's CWE 25 is pretty good too, and they cover a lot more. So it's whatever framework, foundation, whatever you want to call it, that you're going to follow, right? But to answer the question, yeah, we see really great hybrid models. One of my favorites of all time was it Node.js? I think was really secure. We had a really great result with that one. No cross-site scripting, all JavaScript based. It was really good, right? So that was one I really like to see. They're harder to test though, right? If you don't understand the framework or how the language works, you're not really sure what to do, right? So, and that's the whole point of having good engineering as well. So you can back up the new hybrid models you're seeing across everything.
Yeah, because where I was going with that is just seeing a article, a post on LinkedIn where this one guy was touting like, I don't care what you do with your security headers, it's overrated, and SSL search scores and everything else I'm going to get in your system. And I calmly responded to that when the guy never replied back. I'm like, you realize that you just shooting defense in depth down, right? Like the whole purpose of security is stuff that Greg talked to, right? Is we're layering stuff. So yes, some security header policies are not as effective as they used to be, but still having them is a form of defense. Still making sure that your SSL certificate doesn't score a B or lower, right? You want it to be an A. So do you have those conversations with some customers, understanding like, hey, besides, looking at all this fancy whiz bang stuff, your certificates, your headers, and to your point, how you're doing your security groups and logging is still just important all these years later.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a client in 2022. They were like a 15 employee insurance company based out of Illinois. And I'll be honest, they were a soup sandwich. We gave them the report and like, their eyes got huge, like, holy cow, we're gonna have to do all this stuff. And John and I were shocked. They remediated everything in the report, criticals down to lows. And then they bought an EDR product and put it on everything, like on every single endpoint. So during the remediation testing, by the way, we also did a ransomware simulation during the initial test that they failed horribly. And then during the remediation test, they shored up everything. We ransomware to box and they were able to roll it back due to this EDR product's ability to roll back even post encryption. And I'm not gonna lie, the remediation test was miserable because they maxed out every single thing that they could with Windows security. Like, right, they're using laps now, so there's no local admin password reuse. All those like really easy high privilege lateral movement techniques, they're gone. They
You can
turned on
do a
credential
lot
guard
without spending a single cent.
Yeah, like they maxed out all the free stuff, and then they bought a product, and it blew our mind. So.
And the
I will
reason why
say, though,
no, go ahead, John. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, sorry. No, I was going to say real quick on the security headers. We have this discussion all the time with a lot of clients. So if anybody's ever gone through a SOC 2 Type 2 compliance, they're going to look at your security headers. If they're doing the job right, they're going to look at security headers, right? Now, I have heard rumors. I've never seen this happen personally, but some people will actually do it, like, securityheaders.com, or it used to be securityheaders.io, right? They'd go scan your website, and if you have an F on your website, it just shows the external presence of that. You just don't care for security about your website, about your external surface. It's a turn away for a lot of clients. A lot of clients want to see, for example, imagine that PNC had no TSL cert, right? No security headers, all the ports were open. I mean, people probably wouldn't use them, right? So, it's good to have a really strong external surface. I mean, you look at our website, for example. We take pride in security headers. We do the same thing we preach to our clients as well with all our headers. So we should have an A+ on there. Fact check me on that one if you want. So what we take pride. So
no, where I was going with that is I was hoping the guy would respond, because I was going to bring up that risk recon
on the internet.
Yeah, the Risk Recon, which recently, a year or two ago, was purchased by MasterCard. That's on their score sheet to you, right? It's a whole, they're starting to do, it's a whole profile, right? So if you're not doing this config, you're not doing this config, then that's going to drop your overall score, right? So yes, it may be this guy may think he can still hack a site because it's on there. He's not understanding the holistic point that you just brought about. Like, you think MasterCard is going to look at that? Oh yeah. You guys want to bump in your credit line or something like that? They're going to pay attention to that.
Insurance companies. Look at the insurance companies now. They're requiring MFA. They're now requiring EDR products. They're now requiring a ton of things. I mean, we've aligned ourselves with an insurance partner, who actually could help other companies get insurance or get quotes and, actually fix their cyber policies and not spend a fortune doing it. But we're seeing that every year now, there's more and more breaches, and the insurance companies can't afford to pay it out. Eventually, there's going to be a breaking point where it said, hey, we cannot insure you anymore. We don't care if you're breached or not. Just pay the ransom.
We're already seeing that. We're already seeing that after,
I have Anthony a whole episode.
How long ago was that?
Right? And here's the problem, though, right? The biggest problem I have is the insurance companies are going to start scanning you now externally. They're going to say, hey, we don't care. We're not taking your word for it. You're going to prove us wrong. Imagine if they scan your website and say, "Oh, saw an app," like, "Oh, rate just went up." Like, it's going to happen. We're going to start seeing security hygiene.
No, that's already happening.
I was waiting for Anthony to chime in.
I haven't heard any of my clients actually have that happen yet. I've heard about not having MFA because we help. We have a lot of clients who reach out to us and say, "Hey, we failed on insurance, or rate went through the roof. What can we do to get it better?" And then we'll put them on a program, or like we call it a roadmap on how to get them compliant for insurance rates changes for next year. Right. And we'll actually work with the insurance company directly to do this. So I'd say something, we get a few requests in for that. So we like to help, right? Because deploying MFA across Microsoft 365 can be a challenge for a company who doesn't, or the users push back on MFA or don't have personal phones. So there's different ways you can do to lock that down and at least stay in compliancy.
Yeah, sort of a real world example of this is Merck's cyber insurance are refusing to pay for the NotPetya attack. And that was 5 years ago. So because they're saying that it was an act of war and they weren't insured against it. So billions upon billions of dollars.
Oh, crazy.
Matt, you've been awful quiet, but is it two stuff? We're running up against it. What other questions do you have?
I'm just listening and observing. Was there more stuff that they were going to show, or did we stop at the timeout? Is there?
We literally have we've only done half of it so far. John, you want to take it?
I know. I was going to say we gotta jump back. This is what happens when we let Aaron start talking. It derails the conversation.
These were all relevant questions.
They are
Thank you
relevant
very
questions.
much.
No, they're good questions. They're definitely good questions.
Yes. Nope. Great conversation. All right.
Because
I'm gonna pass it back to you to get through the rest of the stuff you wanted to show us.
I will be quiet for the next 5 minutes.
I will say, if I lose power, guys, I do apologize, but I lost power this morning. I'm in a kind of really bad windstorm right now, so if
it's windy in Grand Rapids too.
Like, it's really windy. I sit right below Erie, PA, and we lost power at 8:30 this morning for a while. So, okay, so everybody saw the diagram that Greg showed. Really important with redirectors, right? Let's take it to the next level. Really cool stuff. So we use Apache for everything. I wouldn't say everything, but most of it, right? So you can see here our domain that we own for Cloudflare. Using Cloudflare, I'm dropping Namecheap and going to Cloudflare. So if they hear that, I can tell them exactly why the junk. Make me mad for red teams.
John, explain why you don't like Namecheap anymore.
So Namecheap used to let you buy anything. They were the cheapest, the best to go to for the longest time, and then they started getting harassed by Amazon, Netscape, Azure, all them. And basically, we kept using buzzwords. For example, you could buy windows-updates.com from Namecheap, and they would let it go through. Now, you can't even use the word bank in your domain names. You have to get approval from them. They really cracked down, which is good. That's fine, right? So, like, you can't use the words Amazon. All the buzzwords are blocked. And unfortunately, what happens is we do a lot of phishing engagements and social engineering, and if you get burned for one domain, like Namecheap will burn you, they'll burn your entire profile, which means that we've lost thousands of dollars across Namecheap on domains. And
if you have categorized domains that have been seasoned, they will go in and they will rip those domains out, or they will burn them.
Wow.
If they're legit. So, yep. And then you have to call them, and then arguing with them is just pointless. We found that Cloudflare doesn't do buzzwords. They do validate you with driver's license, which is not a problem for us, right? They validate your payment settings, so they validate who you are. And that's enough for them right now. They use Stripe for that. So, which I found that was reasonable. It was intrusive because the phone took like 30 pictures of me while I was getting my license out. So I didn't like that part, but I can buy whatever I want. I can register what I want. Everything we're doing is legal and approved by a client. So as long as I can buy, obviously DS updates, that's windows.com, I'm happy. So, so that's where we stand. So yeah, our domain today is ds-updates.windows.com. Simulating something from Microsoft, right? Obviously, hopefully you would never fall for this. If you saw this, if you're a blue team member, you saw this, you'd be like, hey, that's not legit. So we take it to the next level. This is just the redirector domain, which means nothing, right? In a real red team. So let's take a look. We're using Apache. So Apache is a way to host a web server. You can Nginx or Nginx, however you want to pronounce it. I'm going to call it Nginx because that's how I'm calling it for my entire life. So that's probably wrong, but we're going to do that anyway. There's you could do HTTPD, which is a spin-off or light version of Apache. I like Apache because the custom rules, and you're going to see some really custom rules here in a second. Everything you see here is public. I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm not doing anything crazy. This has just come from experience in the past years of using Apache. So, like you guys know before, we have port 80 and a 443 open. All the web traffic is going to visit the redirector. It's going to pass the traffic internally across the VPC and subnets to the Cobalt Strike server. With that being said, we have to remove bad traffic from that redirector or not pass it through so we don't get blown or caught right during a red team engagement or on a Cobalt Strike server. So remember, our goal, we don't care about the redirectors. The spin these up is so fast. It takes me 3 minutes to run a Terraform script to spin these up. We'll run 10, 15 at a time. So burning a redirector compared to burning a Cobalt Strike server, there's way more resource and it's intensive to get back up. So it can be. It's getting easier with Terraform, but back in the day, rebuilding Cobalt Strike with profiles was miserable. So let's get right into it. I'm going to jump back to this one on the last one here, but just the first thing that we're doing right now is we're checking for IPs coming through. We're just basically, even though we're doing it with AWS, the redirector has no IP blacklist for 80 and 443. So obviously you guys know, everybody knows what Virus Total is. It's a sandbox cloud environment. It's very expensive for the enterprise, but they do offer a free version where you can upload payloads and check to see if they're malicious. That's like the basic thing. If you have a file like a PDF, a Word doc, an exe that you're not sure if it's legit, upload the Virus Total. We don't upload payloads to VirusTotal because everybody else can get access to them. But a lot of our clients will upload there as well. So what we found is we've actually traced and mapped all the VirusTotal IPs. And we put those IPs in these rules. So if a payload of ours is detonated, it will never reach out. So, because, VirusTotal is a pain for us. They really, kill a lot of our stuff. They also have a really great security queue following them. In this next one here, you can see our redirect target. So if you visit this website right now, you can, it won't be up live after this here, but I'll demo it. So this dswindowsupdates.com, it should redirect us to Microsoft. So let me see if we'll do that here in a minute. You can see here, tying back to the Global Strike profile, we do defines here in Apache, which is CS get and post. Every Global Strike profile will have a get request and a post request. That's what allows the commands to get sent to and executed on the Global Strike team server. You can see here, we're calling out the URIs, which is the URI is the aftermath of the URL. So for example, google.com/whoami, the whoami is the URI. Just be very clear on that. One of the first checks we're going to do is a user agent check. You can see we're looking for Google, Yandex, BingBot, Googlebot, Fighter Simple, Curl, CloudFront's in here, Python. These are all the things that we've seen over time that have burned us to the ground or gotten us in trouble in certain things. Obviously, Netcraft has really picked up their skinny in the last few years, so we blocked them. Once one of these is matched, we're going to hit the redirection of .com/enus. So if someone just tries to curl the website, they'll be instantly redirected to Microsoft.com. Next level of access. That's the first step that is going to happen. Let's take it to a step further. We're going to put a secret header or just a normal header called access X control on our profile. So if you do not have this header, and if you do not have a good user agent, you're getting redirected. So that's step number
slick.
2.
That is slick.
That's how we filter out almost everybody. Those first 2 rules take it to the max extreme. To take it one step further and really protect your infrastructure, because those blue team guys are persistent and they just make me so mad.
I never thought about doing a custom header.
Do a custom header. So if we do a custom header, and then now we check the URI as well. So we used to just do the user agent and URI check. We still get burned. But now, obviously Palo Alto is a really great product, but they don't save the headers most of the time, right? You'll see all the information, but who's going to save access X true or access X control? It's a made up header. I made it up. I combined 2 of them together. So it looks legit. Most people are not going to include that on there. So
sounds real.
Yep.
It does sound real, actually.
And you can see here if you hit all 3 of those checks and you're not part of VirusTotal, you're working for that company, you'll be allowed to proxy pass reverse right through. So let's demo this. And this is the best part.
Again,
okay,
that's pretty impressive. Nice work.
So this is some of the stuff that we teach on the red team companies. This will be part of our Waldo's Hacking Fast anti-ciphering course. So you can see here, we have a valid cert. This is spun up. We're using Let's Encrypt. Another discussion for that one later. Let's go ahead and do it. So you can see, boom, we're now getting the redirect right to Microsoft.com. I don't even have to pull the web browser. It's that clear. So we know the first check is user agent. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. So to do a custom user agent, we're going to use curl. You use the capital A. And I'm just pulling the Linux one here, Linux, x86, Firefox. This is a very common one that's sent out to us all the time. A lot of people use Linux. You can use Windows here. So what happens, we're still getting redirected, but we're moving into the rule number 2, which we don't have the header. So let's go ahead and add that in real quick. 1 second.
While you're adding that in, I will have to defend Let's Encrypt a little bit. For an average website or even a smaller e-commerce website, you do get what you pay for, and it's better than nothing. Yes, it's not a top of the line cert, but again,
I don't think there is such a thing as a top of the line cert.
Nowadays,
like if you buy it from GoDaddy versus if you make it yourself, it's still 256 bits of encryption. Like it doesn't matter.
I think the problem with Let's Encrypt, it has such a bad rep right now that a lot of people are just like, oh, it's a red team, it's something happening, right? So
yeah, it's pretty easy to hunt for Let's Encrypt certs.
Yeah. So what we're doing now,
expiration.
We do use Let's Encrypt right now, but for like a true red team, for that's going on weeks and end, our redirectors, we'll have multiple redirectors set up with DigiCert. I think I've been seeing R3 come out, or RX was a new one that's coming out, but it's not really checked yet. GoDaddy's one. So we have a budget of like $1,500 to $2,000 to get TSL certs. for some of our sites. And to save money and save costs, we'll just do wildcards if we have to. So you can't trace this across, Let's Encrypt because, most of the time, Microsoft is not using Let's Encrypt, right? Google's not using Let's Encrypt. So we got to align with, if we're trying to impersonate Microsoft, we better be using the same kind of cert vendor they're using, right? So it really, the small details do matter. So moving back into this here, you can see we've added in the header access control true header, which is required, right? So this is just this right here should pass check 1 and 2, and bam, that's we did. So what's happening now is since we do not have the correct URI, we're hitting a 403. Now to validate that, we can go back to the reader and we can redirect or fake and we can validate why that's happening. So down here, obviously you can see we're checking to make sure the URI is here. And if it is, we're proxy passing. So without that being here, nothing's going to happen. So you can see here, we have a custom error 404 document that happens that's presented as well if you don't have the correct URI. So really slick as well. Even though we're not doing a redirect after stage 1 and 2, you still get a 404. So you can't even identify the Cobalt Strike server at that point. You won't get anything back. So let's go ahead and fully and identify it with the correct one. So with that being said, you have to have the correct URI on here. And you can see here with this, let's just put a bogus one on here. True, right? You're still presented with the crap. So with our profile, you'll get a bunch of JavaScript coming back. This just is a basic one we use, and bam, we finally have reached the Cobalt Strike profile, and we're getting the post request back. And to validate that, we can look at this real quick. We're not hiding anything with a profile here. This is a profile that's been alive for a year. Clients still don't block this stuff, which is pretty funny. So we have no problem sharing this. Oh, I guess I need a command to be able to do that here. And you can see this is the MSRPC Azure. We're pretending to be Azure. We take this to the next level with CDNs, but that's another topic for another day. You can see here's our get URI right here for the compare 1. And if we go down to the next level here, you can see here is our JavaScript and the query UI that makes it look like we're posting here. So this is exactly what we saw on this screen right here, just in a little bit different format. Moving back to the profile, if you want to see where we're adding in this, you can see here the client sections of all the Cobalt Strike profile is where access control true header has to be added. You don't need to add to the server. You can see there's no custom header added here. These are only presented to make it look legit, right? In this case, we're parsing Microsoft Azure, so we're going to be ISS 10.0. You want to, every little detail counts, right? So very important of a good profile and good hygiene for a security team. We want to make it look legit. The idea of this is to thwart that blue team engineer. So, and with that being said, that is the Azure ruling that we've been working on. So one cool thing that we have been doing is, if we go back to the top here, we talk about these IP rules. Now, this is really cool because this is something we've been including on a lot of things. In this case here, we've just called redirect rules, and it's also conditional rule, access rule like this here as well through Azure, but through a different file. And we still redirect as well. So 1 second here. Let's jump right into this. Now, this is a simplified, dumbed down version. Our actual rule list is hundreds of pages long. Greg, you should drop that link if you have it, or if not, I can post it.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, Curious Jack, you're talking about.
Yep, Curious Jack, and then Meatballs from F-Secure or WithSecure was one who also contributed there as well. We use both of theirs together. So in this case here, you can see we're defining the target for the redirectors is Microsoft.com. Rewrite engine on, rewrite options inherit. This is common stuff. Obviously, this is publicly available right now. There's nothing we're doing here. And these are CloudFront IPs. This is all based on CloudFront. You can see we're blocking /8s. So CloudFront is a contender for actually scanning you and blocking you because CloudFront does have the proxy protection. They have the DDoS protection. If you guys haven't following the news, they just stopped the biggest DDoS attack ever in history a few days ago. So really cool. I'm all about CloudFront. CloudFront's really good. They're doing some really good stuff. So, but they do protect the internet as well, and they do scan all the time. That's why we are blocking them with our user agents as well. In this case here, there's another user agent block here. This is just redundant, right? This gets hit first. So we could do better on our ruling, but we're lazy. So these are basically OR statements. So if any of these subnet ranges /8s or hits. You can see the request schema, which would be HTTPS or HTTP, and then the redirect target request UI, and then it is redirected to the 302, which would be rerun target there for Microsoft.com. So that's it. That's basically an IP block. And just to validate that, I've added, I'm in the 24 subnet range. I did a /16. I tested this. This does work. So really cool stuff.
Yeah.
I know there was a massive amount of information there. Hopefully, this will be available on our GitHub at some point in time after after March 1st. We do plan to make our Terraform scripts and our red team infrastructure publicly available. We're not doing anything secret sauce here or hidden, and we do love to contribute to the security community. So eventually, it will be public for everybody with a full Terraform script.
Yep. So to kind of bring this all together at the very end, so we started the podcast. I demoed how to make your red team infrastructure insecure by not having a redirector and having basically anyone on planet Earth could if I have a listener running on 80 or 443, they could hit the team server. So that's a great way to get your infrastructure burned immediately. So then basically what we did, we put a team server behind a redirector, and only certain traffic that was shaped correctly could access it from the redirector. And then it's only accessible on a private VPC from the redirector. And then the three pieces that John was talking about via proxy pass. So the beacon could access the team server via a specific HTTP header, a user agent, and a URI. So layers upon layers of security.
Yes, good stuff. And if people want to go back and watch this video, they can over and over again, anywhere and everywhere that you get your security podcasts, because we're putting these things all over the place. So, Greg, John, I really appreciate you guys being walking us through this. This was really fascinating stuff. If you want to learn more or just meet these guys, they're also going to be sponsors of our March 23rd event that's coming up. That's the St. Patrick's event, so you don't want to miss that one. And guys, we really appreciate you being a part of this, and we will see everyone for episode 11 coming soon. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks.